Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 352 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. Tonight, she's back! You know you missed her. We all missed her. I missed her. The greatest hostess in the entire world, the known universe, and the state of Florida. Erin Paulette! How you doing, Erin?
Because we all know the Florida swamps contain the nexus of all realities.
They probably do. Plus, you got the swamp puppies.
I am mostly back to normal. LibertyCon really took it out of me. And the drive up there was worse than usual. And I was grumpy when I got there. And I wasn't fit company for a while. And the convention itself frustrated me. And so, I came back home and I was in a mood. And then I caught like a little bit of a something, which I've stomped with, various herbal supplements. And I've finally unpacked all of my suitcases. Finally. Although not everything has been put away, so I still got to do that. So all of this is to say that I've been moving really slowly over the past week. And partly by design, partly by apathy, I really haven't been keeping up on what's been happening in the news. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to seem greatly uninformed on, and I don't care. I don't care. I own it. I am going to be the voice of the, with all respect, the ignorant listener. And so I will be asking dumb questions, and hopefully listeners will be having those questions, and we can address it that way. But I don't care. There's a lot of things I don't care about right now, but Weer'd, I do care about how you're doing.
Well, I'm doing much better. I've got to say, this Monday was a Monday. Starting off in the morning. I don't want to get too deep into it because a lot of it was just my wife and daughter both had very, very rough mornings, and that's none of our business about it, but they were just having a tough time. So that it sucked seeing them having a tough morning, and B, it just made everything more challenging for me to get the stuff that needed to get done. And then C, I don't know if it's extension of me. I jacked up my Achilles tendon running for the plane in Atlanta that I missed. And nothing beats hurting yourself running for a plane that you don't end up catching. But I ended up going for a couple weeks ago, going for a long walk with some shoes that were on their way out, and I definitely had made their way out. And by the end of the walk, I was limping pretty bad, and got home and stretched and took those shoes and threw them straight in the garbage and grabbed the next pair from my shoe rack. So I got up this morning and I was really hobbling around for a while. And then also I had a very brief scare I was using the bathroom and, in the sit down operation. And so I had nothing to do but to look around, and I saw tiny, tiny bugs crawling out of one of the radiator vents in the bathroom. And I was terrified that they were termites. And I picked up a couple of them, and they appeared to be ants, but they were way smaller than the ants the small ants that we usually get in the house this time of year. And but I put out some sugar bait for them, and they are eating it like crazy, which says to me that they are not termites, and that they're also eating the bait, so they will soon be dead, hopefully.
Yeah, I was about to say they might be carpenter ants, which admittedly aren't termites, but they aren't good either.
Well, yeah, so first up, carpenter ants, there may be other species, but the ones that we have around here number one, they are extremely responsive to boric acid bait, which is marvelous poison to use around the house. It affects most insects, and it is not particularly toxic to humans. You certainly don't want to be eating the bait, but it's also nothing you could be too afraid of. And unlike, say, some of the neurotoxins and things like that some insecticides are, this one denatures some like enzymes in their stomach. So essentially, it doesn't actually poison them. It just makes it so they can't digest food anymore, and so they starve to death. And
sort of like how cyanide kills you by disrupting the Krebs cycle.
Correct.
And you suffocate. Yeah.
Yep. You can breathe all you want. Your body's not going to process oxygen anymore. And so, yeah. But the carpenter ants, at least around here, there might be other species, are the great big black ones. And luckily, again, they're big and they respond very, very well to the poison. So I've actually, there really aren't that many around my house, because if I see any carpenter ants hanging out someplace near the house, I'll just poison that nest too, just on good measure. And then two, while they burrow through wood, they actually don't eat it. They only burrow through wood, and they can only burrow through wood that is otherwise rotting. And so carpenter ant damage isn't, so termites will just eat your house. Carpenter ants will just expose a problem that you already had that you need to address anyway, because the wood's gotten soft enough for them to burrow in.
Okay.
So, but we had a bad problem with it, but it turned out there was we had a stone staircase on there, and it was filled with sand, and they had actually burrowed into the sand, and they were using that to climb through the house. And we ended up demolishing that staircase and putting up a different one. And my contractor found all the carpenter ants, and we killed them all, and hasn't been a problem since. But yeah, it turned out that was it. But and I'm trying to remember. It was it just seemed like, I mean, at that point, after a while, enough bad things go bad that even a little minor thing that went bad is just oh, come on. Just something's go my way. But things turned around nicely after about lunchtime. And so otherwise it was a pretty good day. So I got that.
So as someone who has had not just a soft tissue injury, but an Achilles tendon injury, they suck because they take forever to heal. Because, a bone, you put it in a cast, bones don't move, so it responds well to being immobilized, and you're healed fairly quickly. But you can't immobilize. You can't put a cast on a tendon, and it's got to constantly move and flex, and so there's always some sort of strain being put on it. Even if you try to completely stay off it, you're going to end up moving it. I mean, the only way you wouldn't, I guess, would be if you're bedridden and comatose. So they are awful, and I hope that it's not severely injured, because if it is, you're looking at 6 months of this being a pain in your ankle.
Yeah. My wife was saying, "Oh, that sounds like it might be plantar fasciitis," and she was giving me all the descriptions of it. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's it." And of course, also there's the magic problem with it. Again, like you said, it doesn't respond to it doesn't respond well to being immobilized, and in fact, if you hold it too still, it tightens up and gets sore. But if you use it too much, it then gets inflamed and gets sore. So I've been trying to do the Goldilocks approach of I need to walk on it because that helps, but not too much, because then that'll exacerbate it.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife gave me a couple of new stretches to try out. So and I got to tell you, my wife is like a collection of does this hurt? Try this stretch. and you're like, you're crazy. And then, oh crap, it works. So I've learned to stop doubting my wife.
As you should.
As I should. As everyone should. A word of advice.
So, why weren't you wearing your Crocs?
Why wasn't I wearing my Crocs?
Yeah.
For
You said that you walked in the wrong shoe and it really made things worse. So why aren't you wearing your Crocs?
Because Crocs are absolutely the wrong shoe. My Crocs are simply for walking around the house.
I mean, they're super comfortable.
I mean, they are super comfortable, but overall, I find that they give absolutely terrible support for any sort of distance walking.
Okay, fair enough.
So I was wearing my LL Bean Comfort Mocs, which are absolutely amazing shoes. Like, I learned the first time I got a pair, I wore them down to an NRA convention and walked all weekend on them. And at the end, I'm like, my feet feel fine. These are good shoes. The problem was these ones I'd been looking at and going, all right, they're starting to look crappy and they're starting to break down. And, but so far they're still doing all right. And I don't like to throw stuff away until it is officially garbage. And, unfortunately it happened to be an 8-mile walk where they gave out somewhere along the way.
Why would you voluntarily walk 8 miles?
I like walking. It's calming. I listen to podcasts.
Okay.
I'm in my thoughts. It's a great walk that I've got. It's got sidewalks all the way until you get to the nature preserve, and then it's 3 miles in the woods. Ooh, I like distance walking.
Okay.
Why would you do that? Hey, that's the same way I feel about runners. See them all the time. Why are you doing that? Stop.
No one's chasing you.
That's right. What are you in such a hurry for? You can just walk it. Humans are designed for distance walking. We're not fast. We're not fast. We don't have sharp teeth. But guess what? We can walk 20 miles in a day, no problem. Try doing that, any of you other creatures.
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen the memes about humans being persistent predators, and most of the prey animals were only designed to be sprinters because most predators would go, it's not worth the effort, and go after something else. But we'd just trudge along and we'd basically run them to exhaustion.
It's like Jason in the Friday the 13th movies. The dude never gets above just a brisk walk, but he never stops. And he's always right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, speaking of horror stories, this literally has just happened. We are recording this on the last of June, and on the 29th, there was an incident in was it in Iowa? See, I picked this story because it had lots of extra information. But
I think it's in Washington State.
No, I think it's right on the edge. Idaho. And I'm not gonna the town name Coeur d'Alene. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Much apologies. But
what? Okay, the thing you're referencing happened in 1998.
Oh, no, this is a, no, so I put the article that's in the show notes. I wanted to point out just because I wanted to pick an article that, and I guess it's not the greatest article, so I'll actually throw the...
Can we at least tell our listeners what the article is about, yes. Weer'd?
So yesterday for us, there was a brush fire in Idaho. Firefighters responded, and a gunman opened fired on them. Police ended up responding. SWAT teams came out. It appears, and again, we're still in the envelope of uncertainty on this, but it appears that the attacker had taken their own life, and thankfully only after killing 2 people and wounding 1 other. And it seems like the wounded firefighter is going to be okay. And the article that I am also additionally referencing is pointing out the fact that there's actually been several other attacks that are very, very similar to this in the fact that someone has set a fire and has set a fire and used it as bait to bring in first responders for them to attack. And so I actually don't have a ton more to say about that, but just it's one of those, like, it is a serious a serious enough event, and I was concerned about it. And it's also, again, it's something that's happened before, so it's something for us to all keep in the back of our minds as prep.
Yeah, it's not just this has happened before, but this has happened multiple times before. It happened in 2012, it happened in 2018, it happened last year. Well, that one was a man killing 2 police officers and a firefighter who were at his house. But the point being is that there are sickos out there who will deliberately target not just first responders, but who hates firefighters? I can understand people hating police, but who hates firefighters? That's like hating paramedics. These are people who only rescue you. You have to be seriously deranged to want to hurt people who only want to help. And that was the thing that happened in 2012. There was a guy who ambushed and killed 2 firefighters in New York after lighting a fire. And he wrote a note, said, I have to get ready to see how much of the neighborhood I can burn down and do what I like doing best, killing people. So clearly not someone with the right mind. And so to drag this onto the topic of the Second Amendment and firearms ownership, we hear a lot of, well, why do you have a gun? What are you scared of? And there's a lot of things to be scared of. If you think that there's going to be trouble, you don't go. You carry a gun for all the things you don't know about. And unfortunately, first responders are a very tempting target to sick people. And so if you are a firefighter, just be extra safe, because there are people who are, they want to hurt you for no discernible reason. So, you can't carry on the job, I'm sure, but just maintain situational awareness and be prepared.
Yeah. And I was talking with Connie Elliott this morning, and she said the exact same thing as who has a problem with firefighters. And I pointed out the fact that like all of these like freaks are kind of steeped in the same, culture of worshiping of spree shooters, and why we don't mention their names, because we don't want to glorify it, and why we don't speak anything but admonishment to them. But again, these people, their ideas, it's why we have attacks on elementary schools. Why would you attack little kids? Who the hell would do that? Someone who just wants bodies. So a firefighter is a life to kill. So yeah, it is a bummer. It's good to hear that the shooter is dead. I did hear I think it was the chief of police for the town actually did do a direct call out and said, hey, if anybody in the public sees this guy, have at him. And I was kind of hoping that maybe was that back in Florida? There was an incident where a guy attempted a spree killing in an apartment complex, and dude went into his apartment, grabbed his scoped rifle and popped him one in the noggin before he could kill anybody. But
I don't remember, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But we have a sheriff here in Polk County. Polk County is near Tampa St. Pete. I don't think it's actually where the city is, but he's Sheriff Grady Judd.
Oh, yeah.
And we consider him a state treasure because he will say the things that we're all thinking. And, he said things like, yeah, carry a gun. And if someone tries to hurt you, shoot them dead. And so this is absolutely the kind of thing he would say if someone was targeting first responders here in Florida. I'm certain he would say, well, Florida's a gun-friendly state. If you have a concealed carry permit and you see these people, shoot them.
I think, wasn't he the one that also said, like, why did you end up shooting the suspect 19 times? And he said, I guess we ran out of ammo.
That sounds like something he would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is such a national treasure. He shows up in my YouTube feed. So yeah, and he also likes to talk directly to criminals, which I think is actually a firm component of the Second Amendment and why I don't like things like the Gun-Free School Zone Act, or the fact that like places will prohibit first responders from carrying firearms, is the fact that bad people are emboldened by knowing that there are rules that make people be disarmed. And like, we didn't have school shootings until the Gun-Free School Zone Act. Like the law that supposedly was to stop school shootings actually appears to have made it worse. It certainly didn't make it any better. And as a further argument, I know for a fact that there have been 0 shootings at schools where staff are allowed to carry firearms, because the anti-gun people would still be telling us, everyone would know the name of that school because they would be bringing it up every single time there was some sort of event. So yeah,
we ran out of bullets is a Grady Judd quote, and point of interest, they were shooting a cop killer, so it was personal.
Yeah, and he was directly engaging them too. Like he was just being sensational. He's not afraid of he's not afraid to rattle the feathers of it. But it was a very, very clean shoot. There was just a lot. There was, number one, there was a lot of cops engaging the guy, and he was directly shooting at them. So everyone was shooting until the threat was stopped. And to quote Ron White, I didn't know how many of them it was going to take to kick my ass, but I knew how many they were going to use.
So I've dropped the link to the video in the show notes.
Yes, that's awesome. You know, we'll throw that into the show notes so that everyone can see it.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Awesome, thank you.
I kind of know what I'm doing. Weird.
I mean, you do an awesome job, Aaron.
Thank you. Right. So, I don't know. I guess speaking of people who don't know what they're doing or aren't doing a good job. Okay. So the big, beautiful bill. Let me tell you my extreme ignorance. Until I heard about this, I didn't even know that the Senate had a parliamentarian. That's how out of the loop I am.
I didn't either, honestly. Granted, I am also woefully ignorant on parliamentary procedures as a whole, on what rules they have to follow. I got the basics. The Schoolhouse Rock side of it. I know really, really well, and I know about things getting killed in committee and that sort of stuff. But like which votes just require a simple majority, which require a 2/3 vote, et cetera, et cetera. You know, how many times does a bill get passed back and forth between the House and the Senate before it can finally go to the president's desk? I don't know about any of that stuff. And, but I will say, I totally get, we were actually talking a bit earlier about this because you were just wanted to give me the heads up that like you didn't even realize that there was a parliamentarian, is that overall, like the big, beautiful bill is everything I hate about Washington, of just these gigantic bills that are just packed full of pork and side projects and things that really aren't appropriate for it or should be their own bills. And
well, if we would actually give the president a line item veto, we probably wouldn't have this problem, but I digress.
Yeah. Yep. But on the other hand, as a Second Amendment advocate and as a Second Amendment podcast that we are, it is important to talk about the words on the wording on NFA items that is in this, and of course we talked about it last week with the fact that the essentially the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act were removed from the big, beautiful bill, but it does appear that at the time of our recording that the language that reduces the tax for suppressors and I believe short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns, it is reducing that down to 0. There are some certainly actually that does seem to go through because again this is a tax bill, and it can be argued both ways because the only reason why the NFA exists is because it's tax law, not firearms law. So in theory, taking stuff off of the NFA and moving stuff around in the NFA should technically fall into tax law. Again, bloated, inappropriate statement, but again, we'll take a victory however we can get it. But they've decided that changing the tax stamp number is perfectly fine, and so that is going to move forward. And I will say, on one hand, I'm not gonna argue with a victory, and say that in fact this is good. This is good for everyone. Less money for NFA items is really, really good. Kind of sucks that all the paperwork and restrictions are still going to be a thing. That's kind of worse than the tax, in my opinion. But going through, also there's a double-edged sword in the fact that because the tax was lowered to 0, the tax could be raised back up to inflation-adjusted dollars, which we did a calculation before we started the show. It would be $5,000 is what $200 in 1932 equals to with inflation calculations, or higher, and so that in theory could happen. But I will also say, on the other hand, one of the only reasons why the NFA hasn't had a serious Second Amendment challenge is because it's tax law, not gun law. And so therefore it's one of those, the taxing on these items is not considered a violation of the Second Amendment or a violation of the prohibition of a firearms registry at the federal level. So in theory, if this is all tax information, but yet nobody's paying the tax, they're just registering, that could be challenged. Granted, there are far better things to challenge that the Supreme Court has balked at, so I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, even though I'm a cynic, I do see the point you're making, because I think I made it earlier. Yeah, if you've got a tax for $0, you don't have a tax, and that can be challenged. Because what's the point of collecting this information? As you said, it now just becomes a de facto gun registry. And so, yeah, I really hope that gets taken care of. But SCOTUS seems to be waiting to make its move.
Yep. And we will see about that and see where that goes through. Again, we had Kavanaugh's dissent on the declining of Ocean State Tactical and Snope, and so it sounds like they're up to something. I don't really understand it. I don't know if we'll even understand it once we actually get a case. But the one last thing I want to say about this is, no matter what happens, like even if everything gets stripped off of this and this big beautiful bill either gets killed and never goes to the president's desk, or goes to the president's desk and Trump signs it and it has no NFA language on it whatsoever, even if that happens, we have really moved the Overton window with this. Like, we have given long, hard discussion on whether or not short barrel rifles, suppressors, and short barreled shotguns even should, and any other weapons should be on the NFA at all. Like, the only thing that was safe and wasn't touched was full auto and destructive devices, of which honestly is kind of understandable. Those are, if I had to make an argument for stripping stuff off of the NFA, the machine gun and destructive device one, especially if we could set back and say anything that takes a standard shotgun shell is not a destructive device, because that's always a goofy part of the NFA. But yeah, the idea that we have that I own a 454 Casull revolver, but having a Ruger 1022 with a 10-inch barrel is really, really dangerous, or having a shotgun with a shorter barrel when you can own a Mossberg Shockwave or a Taurus Judge, where, hey, look, I've got a shotgun and it's tiny.
Or a KSG, where because it's a bullpup, the barrel is functionally shorter, but technically the proper length. So yeah.
Yep. No, you're absolutely correct on that. And so yeah, I think we've really gotten some people thinking strong and hard. And also, got to remember, 90% of the people out there, no matter what they say about the Second Amendment, whether they're for or against it, they really don't care. It really doesn't affect them. It doesn't bother them. It's just a question of politics. And I think this has really shown where the politics stands, is that the sky isn't falling and people aren't clutching their pearls, and it's not causing massive amounts of outrage that we would dare be talking about taking these deadly, dangerous weapons off the NFA, because it's all crap. So we are certainly moving the Overton window, and even if this does not go through, we are certainly in a better position to present that as a standalone bill, or also to goad the Supreme Court into making a ruling, because they also seem to want to choose stuff that's going to cause the least amount of outrage in the American people.
So, speaking of being full of crap, and we were talking about Ocean State Tactical and Rhode Island's magazine ban. Well, Rhode Island is at it again, and they now have an assault weapons ban on top of their magazine ban.
Indeed,
isn't that lovely?
Yep, and it's. I ended up reading the bill. It's actually pretty short. It's only 4 pages, so it's actually, compared to a lot of these bills, you pull them up and they're like 200 pages long, and it's of all just legalese jargon. This one actually read pretty easy, and this one it's pretty standard boilerplate assault weapons ban per like the 1994 one, though in the fact that it's got the ultimate FUD caveat, which is fixed tubular magazines that take rimfire ammunition is exempted. So if you've got yourself a Marlin Model 60 or some other semi-auto tube-fed gun that holds a ton of ammo, that's still perfectly legal. That's exempted from this. And then, God, they put a bunch of like wording trying to get around the various like California workarounds, like trying to say that like they're trying to keep bullet buttons out to make sure that say that if you've got a bullet button installed in your gun, that would be essentially a recessed magazine release that you either need to use the tip of a bullet or a ring or a punch or something like that to actually push the magazine release in to drop the magazine. And that was considered a tool disassemblable magazine, at least until California banned it. And they're trying to do that, but man, it's hard to read this and not have it say that, like, if you need a pin punch or a screwdriver to take apart your gun, then your magazine's removable. Okay. But again, that's how it's written. We'll see how they enforce it. As a resident of Massachusetts, we know that just because they write it one way doesn't mean that that's how they're going to enforce it. Got all the standard stuff, bayonet lugs still on there, folding or telescoping stock, grenade launcher, a shotgun with a revolving cylinder. Gotta stay away from that deadly Striker street sweeper. Huge problems with that. And then, but the big one they have is they've got barrel shroud. And of course, we all know the famous Tucker Carlson interview with Carolyn McCarthy, where she says the infamous, that's the shoulder thing that goes up, right? I mean, that was a winning thing, but Tucker was really going for the way that law was written. Pretty much any semi-automatic firearm was going to be banned, at least any semi-automatic with a removable magazine, because it was really sounding like any sort of forearm on a rifle was considered a barrel shroud. And this one is a little bit better. Essentially, a shroud attached to the barrel that partially or completely encircles the barrel, allowing the bearer to hold the firearm with a non-trigger hand without being burned. Because we certainly want to have firearms that encourage burns, because that would be safer. Jerks.
The thing is, I can actually see the gun prohibitionists thinking, if we make it painful to hold, people won't want to shoot it, and that serves our purposes.
I mean, that is true. I remember seeing the when John Kerry was running for president and he did the duck hunting, and seeing him walking through the fields with the double-barreled shotgun, and he was carrying it with his hand wrapped all the way around the barrels. And me, the avid shooter, is like, oh my God, don't do that. I have definitely, there was one point I shot my SKS and then threw it up over my shoulder to walk back with the action locked open, back to it. And the gas tube touched the side of my neck and I heard it sizzle.
Ooh.
But John Kerry likely fired 1, maybe 2 shots that entire hunting trip. And yeah, those barrels probably never got more than, it's a little warm. But they specifically state, that the exception is an extension of the stock along the bottom of the barrel, which does not encircle or substantially encircle the barrel. So that's, sounding like, again, you got your, your Marlin Model 60, your, I'm trying to remember if a Mini 14 has a stock like that. And all that, where the top of the barrel is mostly exposed, and just the stock extends forward of the handguard. But that absolutely sounds like pretty much most AR-15 forearms would count as a barrel shroud, because pretty much every single one out there completely encircles the barrel, and it's a separate piece of furniture from the buttstock. So that could, in fact, be very, very interesting in how they enforce it, in the fact that it could make it so that really there's no such. And this is, by the way, this is a one feature test. Essentially, it needs to be semi-automatic, so this doesn't affect any manually operated guns. It needs to have a detachable magazine, of which that's pretty dodgy. Like if your magazine can be removed, possibly even with some basic tools, that might be considered a removable magazine. And then you need at least one of these features for it to be banned. And so the barrel shroud, that's going to cover a lot for most modern firearms. We'll see if that's how they end up enforcing it, but this is crap. And then on top of that, again, being in a world where the Supreme Court has essentially promised to give a ruling on assault weapons bans, the fact that they're pushing forward this sort of stuff shows that the states that were affected by Heller, McDonald, and NYSERPA, they really don't care. They really, really, really don't care. And that sucks.
So here's something that doesn't suck.
That's right.
The ATF has actually reinterpreted a rule in our favor. And it now allows the importation of Simunition Training Rounds and dual-use barrels. Yeah, and the Simunition Rounds is pretty standard. I mean, these are training rounds, but they actually do fire, but they fire in a fairly safe way, safe enough that you can shoot at other people, similar to airsoft guns and that sort of stuff. But again, it's using actual firearms, so therefore it's far more realistic, and all that. And I've heard lots of people that say that it's a really, really good training aid, and talking about how
if you're using laser guns or some other form of mock-up and all that, people start acting like heroes. But when you're actually getting hit by something and they do actually sting, suddenly there aren't as many heroes, and people actually behave a little closer than they do in the field when it's actually live fire. And the story here says that that the two most common Simunition rounds are based out of the UK and Canada, so they've all really needed to be imported. So this is good news. And dual use barrels, the overall the rule was that obviously we've got the sporting purposes rules as far as importing guns and gun parts. Again, crap, shouldn't be constitutional. We'll see what happens. Or I believe it was started with an executive order. So in theory, President Trump could just veto it and just sign an executive order that gets rid of it. But there might be sporting purposes and some other laws as well. But either way, the idea was that if a barrel fit a sporting use gun, but also fit a non-sporting use gun. So if there was a barrel that could fit a semi-automatic rifle that had a removable magazine and tactical features, but also would fit a bolt action rifle, you could not import that barrel because it was dual use and it could be used for non-sporting purposes. And they have reversed that. So that's good news. So long as it sounds like they're going the other way around. If there's a sporting use for the barrel, then it can be imported.
On to the segments. So David's last name is Bock, and he's talking about shooter shine. So this segment is called Shooter Shiner Bock.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. I've talked about the importance of regular firearms maintenance and cleaning in previous episodes, including some of the oils and solvents I prefer. The other day, I received a sample of a new cleaning product for testing and evaluation. So in this segment, I'd like to talk about Shooter Shine Advanced Gun Care CLP. This product is advertised to deep clean and protect metals at the microscopic level using nanotechnology. While this term is a common buzzword in modern advertising, it generally means microparticles of some sort, as it does here. The list of active ingredients in this product is remarkably short. After odorless mineral spirits used as a carrier and solvent, the first ingredient is zinc dithiophosphate. This compound is frequently used as an anti-wear and corrosion-inhibiting additive in many high-performance lubricants, such as oils for race car engines. Next is polytetrafluoroethylene, more simply referred to as PTFE, and commonly known as a member of the Teflon family. PTFE is extremely hydrophobic. This means, like WD-40, it actively repels water. In addition, PTFE has a very low coefficient of friction, aiding in lubricity between parts. This is followed by titanium dioxide. Among other purposes, it's used for generating thin film coatings. The final ingredient is silica nanoparticles. This is a derivative of silicon dioxide, which is also referred to as silica fume. It's an ultrafine powder with an average diameter of 150 nanometers. For comparison, an average human hair is around 60,000 nanometers in diameter. This makes silica nanoparticles an extremely gentle polish additive. All these ingredients have other uses, however, I'm focusing on their likely purpose for being included in this product. Enough about what's in it, how does this product perform? An important detail to keep in mind is something the rep told me when he demonstrated Shooter Shine for me. A little bit goes a long way. Only a few spritzes should be needed to clean a handgun, maybe one or two more for a rifle or shotgun. Truly, a little dab will do ya. My first impression, while it does smell clearly of odorless mineral spirits, which aren't actually odorless, it's not as strong as the pure thing. It's probably still too smelly for my wife to allow me to clean guns in the living room, but considerably less pungent than other solvents I've tried. I'll have to test this theory and report back. For one of the tests, I pulled the muzzle device off a 9mm AR pistol I built. I've never cleaned the crown on this barrel, and it was fairly well caked with carbon buildup. After a single spray of Shooter Shine, and maybe a minute scrubbing with a nylon brush, it looked much better. Using the same process on the breech face had similar results. Cleaning the interior of the barrel went as smoothly as could be expected. The result was a nice, clean, shiny bore. It's hard to tell if the barrel is any cleaner than with my go-to CLP, but it's at least that good. I was a little more cautious with the lower receiver as it's 3D printed, and many solvents can damage that material. No problems were encountered in that regard, and I was even able to get some combustion residue out of the layer lines. As advertised, Shooter Shine didn't leave any oily or greasy residues, yet the mechanism cycled smoothly after I reassembled everything. While I probably used more than necessary, I am still getting used to the product. Overall, Shooter Shine CLP seems to do a good job cleaning my guns. Only time will tell if the protective and rust preventative aspects live up to the marketing. Shooter Shine is manufactured by RJ Technologies out of Murrayville, Georgia. It's a fairly new product, so currently it can only be purchased from the company website, though they are looking for businesses to join their dealer program. Based on my experience so far, I can recommend giving Shooter Shine a try. Keep your guns clean and your powder dry.
Brylcreem, a little dab will do ya. Use more, only if you dare.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments, or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
David happens to have a perfectly reasonable armory to clean his guns in. I believe he has a computer down there so he can watch movies and play music if he gets bored. So cleaning in the living room, yeah, that's a bit of a party foul. Not only is it just a party foul, but also just don't clean in your living spaces. There's like carpets and furniture that you could like stain with the gross runoff of it. And then also, the solvents could like strip the stain off of furniture.
I mean, if you're sloppy, sure.
I mean,
some of us put down mats.
Yeah, I have a bare concrete floor down here in the armory. It works out just fine.
Okay.
I will say actually my personal favorite cleaner, and it turns out actually Hops has bought it, is M Pro 7, and it cleans really, really well, and it like has like no real harsh smells, and it's not particularly terrible on your hands. You should probably wear gloves anyway, but I usually don't. Yeah, it does a really, really good job, and it's not like you get Hops number 9 on your skin, and it's not a great day. But boy, I do like the smell of it.
Well, so much for ladies dabbing it behind their ears to entice men.
I mean, it'd work, but...
I know it would work, and I've heard it as a joke, but you were the first person who's ever said that it burns on contact with skin, so...
Yeah, I don't know if it burns on contact, but it's definitely one of those ones of the... You're if you get a whole bunch of it on your skin, you'll realize it later on. At least your skin will be all dried out. Certainly if you get in a cut. Ugh.
Well, you get anything in a cut, it's going to hurt.
That's true. Continuing in the vein of good old gun and gear reviews, Miles got his hands on the new Ruger RXM, and he gives us his thoughts on it.
Hello, this is Miles with another episode of the Southpaw Corner. In this episode, I will be talking about one of the guns that I saw during the SHOT Show coverage that I was excited about. As most of you may have listened to the podcast and have listened to the blooper reels know, I wasn't excited about a whole lot, but there were a couple. And one of them I was able to procure even here in Massachusetts where it's hard. I was able to get my hands on one of the new Ruger RXMs. Yeah, I had to purchase it as a frame transfer and then assemble it myself, which is, well, putting the slide back on. Outside of that, it was fairly simple. And so this is basically my coverage of my first shots with it. So I bought it this past Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I went to the range with it. Well, let's step back a minute. Before I went to the range with it, I realized that I was going to have a hard time with it because I could not see the sights because of my eyesight. So I needed a red dot. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Don't really want to take any of the red dots off of my normal rotation of guns. So I was like, what? I was like, well, I haven't really done a lot with the Ruger 5.7 because of ammunition not being plentiful for me. So I took the Swamp Fox Kraken off of that and mounted it on the Ruger RXM. So then I took it to the range, and, in about 20, 25 minutes, I was able to get the red dot zeroed to the best that I could with the targets I had available. I didn't have a good bullseye target to really get the measurements off of, so I was just doing a rough zero, but close enough, and put around 50 rounds through it. And all seemed to work very well. Later on that evening, I did take it out and shoot it again, and when I did that time, I noticed that I was starting to be inconsistent with its hitting, and I'm like, what in the world's going on? After a quick inspection, the red dot had started to come loose, because of course, this is not what I planned keeping on it, so I didn't Loctite it down, and a couple of the screws in the base plate for the Kraken had come loose. The ones mounting the Kraken to the base plate were fine. It was just the two that went into the frame itself that had walked back a little bit. So overall, everything went well, but not perfect. My initial thoughts on this firearm after shooting about 50 rounds through it, I know it'll get better with time and break-in and, smoothing out the action and whatnot. So this is just my initial reaction of it. One, completely dependable with ball ammunition so far. I have not tried any hollow points or any other of the specialty ammo through it, which I will do eventually. The mounting system is great. Like I said, I had the screws walk loose a little bit, but that really wasn't the gun's fault. That was the fact that I don't want to keep that sight on it, so I didn't Loctite it down. I would use a little bit of blue Loctite on those screws, and it wouldn't have probably had that problem. As far as the trigger is concerned, it's a typical 5 3/4 pound trigger pull. I think my trigger gauge, it was 5 pounds, 10 ounces. So, right in that mid-5 range. It was a little gritty, but it had a nice clean break. And the reset wasn't terrible, but considering I'm used to my M&P and my mechanics, that's not the greatest reset either. But it's very good. The iron sights that are on it, when I can get my eyes to focus properly on them, are wonderful. They're nice, crisp, clear. It's just most of the time my dominant eye does not like to focus on that front sight, and it makes it very difficult. I can play around with my glasses and get the right sweet spot and get a focus, but it's a very unnatural position for shooting, at least. The grip angle was beautiful. It's the one thing I don't like about Glocks is the grip angle. The Magpul mags worked great. Like I said again, I've only tried ball ammunition. I will try some hollow points to it soon, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet. And I think with the shooting I did again that night, which I will be covering in a later episode, I did get about 80 rounds to it so far. No issues with it whatsoever. And as time goes by, we'll find out if I do have anything come up. But for right now, my initial thoughts on the Ruger RXM are great. The only thing I wish they would do is either come out with a reversible frame mag release or come out with a left-handed frame with mag release. It's a minor thing. I can use the middle finger to push the button and drop the magazine. It's not the end of the world, but it would be nice to be able to just use my thumb and do it quicker because that is what I'm used to, because almost everything else I have is either ambi or reversible. Well, that's my thoughts for tonight, and if you have any questions for me about the Ruger RXM or any suggestions you would have as far as that is concerned, please let me know through the Handgun Radio Facebook page. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Handgun Radio Facebook page. Excuse me, Miles?
I mean, he is there, and they are a little bit more active than us. So if you want to make a liar out of Miles, he does hang out in the ACP Facebook page as well. Give him a shout out. So I was actually surprised that the RXM was mass approved, because it hasn't been out for very long. And for those that don't know, it is essentially a non-Glock, but it's taken to the next level because it actually uses like a fire control system, very similar to the SIG P320 and the 365. And so that means that you can modify the grip without risk of destroying your gun. And I'm sure, Aaron, you went through that as you modified your Glock.
Yeah, and I modified mine with a Dremel, and I know people are wincing, but I did my research beforehand, and I was very careful, and I probably just got lucky.
I mean, nobody should be wincing, because again, we've all seen the people that have stippled their Glocks and undercut and done all that sort of thing. But it's one of those, I would have no problem with if there was a gunsmith that was a Glock stippler or all that, modifying my gun whatsoever. I would definitely, Aaron, when you did that, I'm sure it was the first time you'd ever done that. And you're doing it on the serialized part of your gun.
Yeah. So when I was at LibertyCon, I did the gunny thing of, going to the room, and I show them my guns and they show me theirs, and we, play with them is a harsh word, but you know what I mean. And one of the guns David showed me was, I think it was a Glock upper and a 3D printed lower, and he 3D printed it with the grip stippling. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it, I thought that was going to be awkward, if not painful to hold. But no, it actually felt quite comfortable in my hand. I really liked that. So, yeah, it's really amazing what they're doing now with stippling and 3D printers. But, LibertyCon and Ruger pistols, and because Miles mentioned the red dot, I want again mention my Ruger Max 9 with the fiber optic ready dot that comes calibrated for it. And I showed it to Oddball, I showed it to David, I showed it to friend of the show with the common name, and they were all very intrigued by it because they'd never seen it before. And let me just say, there's something, it really warms my heart when I go, I've got a gun that they've never seen before. Ooh, I've got some status there. And so, I mean, they seemed to like the gun fine, but they were concentrating on the fiber optic sight, which is what I wanted them to do. And they all thought it was really neat. I mean, probably not enough to make them go out and buy one, but I think I convinced them that this is actually a really cool idea. And yeah, no moving parts to break, no need for batteries. It just works. And so, David, I think, might be considering getting one. I'm not sure. But it was really neat to do that. So, I really don't have a way to tie it to Miles's segment, other than that we're talking about Rugers with red dots. But it was neat and I wanted to share.
And may I just tie in a little bit to our discussion earlier, is that we're, of course, really kind of entering into a golden age of pistol optics where so many guns are now coming directly from the factory with dots on them. And certainly it's odd to have a new gun that comes out that's not milled for a dot. And imagine what the innovation would be like if suppressors were off the NFA.
Well, for one thing, they'd be a lot more affordable.
Yep, they'd be a lot more affordable, and we would just have guns that just had them. There'd be a lot of intricately suppressed guns, just like there's guns that come with muzzle brakes and flash hiders and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be boring. I mean, they can't all be David Shiner Bock. Shooter Shiner Bock, sorry. But, yeah. Carrie Sloan returns to the Assorted Calibers podcast, and this time she's talking about homesteading.
So once again, I am welcoming back Carrie Sloan of We the Female to the Assorted Calibers podcast. How you doing, Carrie?
I am great. Thanks again for having me on.
Yes, and so we talked about in our last interview about your shenanigans on the Twix, and some of the stuff is pretty spicy. We mentioned that, and there'll be links in the show notes. And if you like the spice, Carrie brings the spice. But
I'm equal opportunity too. Don't think you're going to get one side of that. I take them all down.
Everyone's going to get a piece of the action.
Everybody gets a piece.
She's got hands.
I'm an equal opportunist.
But one of the things you showed was a big basket of bounty from your garden, which was a bunch of vegetables and some eggs. And it's one of those like. And honestly, I hadn't seen much of that stuff, on your Twitter feed, and so I had to ask you. So tell me all about what you've got going on there in Georgia.
Well, in 2020, my husband and I decided that we were done in Washington State for all of the reasons that can go without being said. I think we all know how crazy it got up there. And when he retired from the military in 21, we took our daughter, dropped her off at college, and immediately, we actually started looking for a home right before he retired. And we bought a property to homestead in Southeast Georgia. And if you're not familiar with the geography of Georgia, most people think of Georgia, they think of like Atlanta North, right? Then like being the foothills of the Appalachian at this end and, so on. But I'm down in Southeast Georgia, closer to Jacksonville and Savannah. And down where I'm at is all farmland, and where Vidalia onions come from, where most of your blueberries come from out of the country. Surprisingly, it was blueberry country down here.
I'm from Maine, and I take offense to that.
To what, blueberries?
Oh yeah, no, Maine blueberries are the only true blueberries, and I'll fight you on that one.
Well, you can fight it, but we're one of the top first or second producer of blueberries in the country. It's the number one GDP here. In the state. And it surprised me because I grew blueberries at home in Washington, where the climate is obviously cooler. So it surprised me that blueberries were such a big crop here in this area. It's bigger than peanuts, and it's bigger than peaches. Interestingly enough, I was actually surprised to hear that. Actually, one of our big ones is olives here because we have a Mediterranean climate. But anyway, so we bought 30 acres down here. And we have been on a huge learning curve, learning how to become homesteaders. And I also became an herbalist that I don't talk about as much as I probably should out there. But I actually did that. Went to school to become a certified herbalist because I wanted to give people alternatives as gun owners to, medications that could get them red flagged, actually. So not only do I grow our own food, or working on growing all of it, we don't grow everything now, but we're working on it. I also grow my own medicinal plants, herbal remedies as well.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And yeah, there's a whole myriad of stuff in there. And, as my wife works in the pharmaceutical industry, a lot of that stuff comes from natural precursors, isolating things. And so, there's a lot of different, medicinal properties for things. And as the home cook, I also note food is medicine. Yeah, this will
100. And for those, people out there, just as, because you naturally took that conversation there, one of the best gateways that you can start into herbal remedies, especially since a lot of people suffer from insomnia, you can take valerian. You have to be careful about where you get the source. Try to find it from a good herbalist if you can. Or, don't just blindly buy it on Amazon because it's on Amazon. But, right, because it had good reviews on Amazon, because that doesn't mean that people selling it. No, exactly. And find a good source for it. I try to stay away from Chinese, unless it's been vetted, right? I don't like mass-produced Chinese stuff because you don't know what else you're getting. Mm-hmm. But some herbs you have to buy Chinese, just because that's where they grow. But, do your homework, be educated about it. But valerian is what Valium came from originally before it was lab created. So that's a really good one for people to kind of start with.
Mm-hmm.
I joke that I call it kind of a gateway. And that's a nice one. It will help you sleep. It helps take away some of the anxieties, insomnia for sleep. So there you have it. There's your first tip. Start with valerian, and then you can start educating yourself more about herbal remedies. And I'm always here to help with that as well, especially if you're a gun owner and you're worried about taking medications that could potentially get your guns taken away from you. That is absolutely unacceptable. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunately a very real thing that I don't think do any states have it besides the scheduled drugs where certain medications will be disqualifiers. I know they've been talking about it.
No, and they never specifically say. So, what sent me viral actually in it and literally started working in the gun industry was a law that was passed in Washington State in the end of 17, that was, to paraphrase, that when you sign your 4473 in the state of Washington, it's a waiver of your medical record, and you can be denied the ability to purchase a handgun in Washington State based on what they see in your medical record. Now, Weer'd, you and I both know that they're not looking for, broken arms, right? They're looking for some justifiable reason, mental health care wise, or, whatever. And I spoke about that. And, as a domestic violence survivor, I spoke about the fact that I went to I was diagnosed with PTSD because I did what I was supposed to do. And I went to therapy after my abuser beat the hell out of me for the last time. And so therefore, based on the vagueness of the law in Washington State, I could be denied the purchase of a gun based on what they find, which is PTSD in my medical record.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that that's the case, but it is. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like a lot of the medications you take every day, actually, for example, my girlfriend was a breast cancer. She's a they caught it super early because she had the marker or whatever. And so they took all of, she had the mastectomy and all of the girl stuff removed. But the medication that they put her on for hormone therapy while she was going through all of it was actually in the antidepressant category. And so because they don't classify what can be denied or what can't, she could potentially be denied the ability to buy a gun based on the fact that they just have her on something that's in the antidepressant category, because they don't ever make the effort to classify or make specific criteria available for what they will approve or not approve. And, they want it that way on purpose, right? They want it big on purpose.
We have the same thing with what makes an assault weapon in states that ban those is, well, we don't want to tell you because then you might figure out ways around it.
Right. We want it to stay arbitrary because, we want the ability to move it around and manipulate it as we choose. And that kind of pisses me off.
I will also state that, and I guarantee that there are other states that are using the same language, because a lot of these government forms use lawyer boilerplate. But I know the state of Maine concealed weapon application asks you specifically if you are under the influence of any drugs that can cause withdrawal symptoms. And here I am sipping a cup of tea, which, if I stop drinking tea for, about 18 hours or so, I'll start getting headaches. It goes away pretty fast. Caffeine's an easy one to kick, but I also used to smoke cigarettes, which trust me, there's withdrawal for those.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you nailed it. And that's exactly what it is. And so they definitely want to, be able to move that goalpost the way that they want to be able to move it. And, to be clear, for people that may be more partisan that listen to your podcast, Republicans support that type of legislation as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of, Marco Rubio, as much as I like him for the most part as Secretary of State, I think he's doing an okay job in his new position. But I want to say, maybe I have to confirm that. I'm pretty sure he was the one that was he was a co-sponsor on the Bipartisan Safer Community Act, which had red flags laws in it. Yeah,
he may have, and there's further. Yeah, the GOP is absolutely one that is all about, if you're taking any sort of substance, we're going to throw the book at you. So,
Yeah, they definitely don't, right? And they're their own worst enemy, really, because if they just legalized marijuana, they would see a lot of this go away. But that's a whole other podcast episode that we can talk about.
There's a whole other podcast. But yeah, and also to get us back to the herbalism thing, in case you're one of the people that think, oh, Carrie, she's just a lunatic hippie. And all that. Those of you that either have kids or know people that have kids, try giving a kid like a nice big, slice of birthday cake and have them wash it down with a bright red sugary drink, possibly the ones out of those milk jugs, and all that, and then see how their behavior changes. And then meanwhile, like if I can get my daughter on lots of good fruits and vegetables and some good clean protein and all of that, she's just having a whole lot of a nicer time overall, so what you put garbage into your body, your body's it's going to survive, but it ain't going to like it.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm glad you brought that up because it kind of goes back to the homesteading conversation, that we started with. And that I would say one huge benefit that came from 2020 and the COVID mess is that we saw a lot of conservative leaning people kind of become the more of that hippie, the stereotypical woo-woo kind of personality. And they're going more to homesteading and herbal remedy and therapies and stuff. And a lot of the more liberal leaning hippies, as people, would call them at one point, kind of woke up to the questions of the science and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that these two worlds are not as far apart as people thought they were. And it took 2020 happening for people to realize that. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it ties also into the whole Second Amendment arch that the Assorted Calibers podcast preaches. Is we've got a lot in common. You may be someone who's super left wing, or you may be someone who's super right wing. But if we both agree that that we have the right to defend ourselves and the right to live, then that's a good common ground for us all to stand on. So I got to ask. So where are the eggs coming from?
So we did get chickens. We added chickens to the farm last year, and chickens are a great, if you're looking at livestock, chickens are a great gateway drug. And there are even breeds that are quiet that you can have in your urban backyard if you're careful, if you don't have an HOA, or even if you have an HOA, but you've got property is set in a way that people can't see into your property. Like, research it. I don't know what they are because I don't have to worry about that where I'm at, but there are chicken breeds you can get. Also, quails are also very quiet, and quail eggs are actually really good for you, probably better than eggs. So what the thing is about eggs, my husband doesn't eat eggs. I'm the only one that does. Well, my dogs now too. My dogs get eggs every day because we have so many eggs now that we don't know what to do with them, because my daughter's, she's away and married. It's just my husband and I. So be mindful of that. If you decide to get into chickens, don't buy more than you think that you can manage for eggs, because there's, I'm freezing eggs and I'm lime preserving eggs and lime water. I'm doing all kinds of stuff to try to, keep these eggs under control. But as much stuff as you use with eggs, right? If you make your own pastas or breads or whatever, eggs or chickens are a really great way. We don't have meat birds yet. We'll probably add those next year to what we're doing. But egg laying chickens are a great way to start. We're looking at sheep now as well, getting sheep in.
As someone who hates mowing my lawn, I like that one.
Yeah. So look at the pros and cons between goats and sheep, depending on, because if you aren't in a position to move sheep a lot, they can make your property, because they'll strip it down to the root, which is good. Like the kind of grass we have here, we want that. We want the grass gone completely down to the root, whereas goats are more of a lawnmower style, whereas sheep will absolutely decimate it from the root. But we have Bermuda grass, or we like to call it double grass here. So we're looking for that. We want that rooted, the sheep to take it out completely. But you want to people want to go in and get goats or get sheep just because they're cute and they're fun and this and that. Goats are a lot more work. They're higher maintenance, far more active, but there's benefits and there's pros and cons to both. So just do your homework based on your property and what your needs are before you get into it. But for us, it looks like it's going to be sheep.
That is so cool. And post more pictures of your critters, because I'm a biologist.
Well, when I do, I'll post more pictures of my chickens. I don't get too many pictures of them, as much as I probably should, but out there. But Yeah, it's when I get sheep, I'll definitely be, probably get more of those out there and things, especially because they'll be living in the woods. We're gonna put them up. Their nightly home will be in the woods behind the property.
Oh, I mean, that's so cool. And so I think something that'll be interesting to many of the people here. So thank you so much for coming on, Carrie.
Hey, thank you. I know we didn't get into too much homesteading talk because we got digressed on the herbalist route, but I think that they go hand in hand personally. And hopefully there's some information out there that people will find helpful. And if anybody has any questions, reach out to me through social media. And I'm happy to answer them for you. And look, I'm learning too, so we can learn together, y'all. we can definitely take the homesteading and self-sufficiency journey on together, because I may learn something from y'all that you haven't taught me.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Carrie Sloan of We the Female. For those who think Carrie's herbalism is a little bit out there, take your kids to McDonald's and then get them a milkshake for dessert, and then compare their behavior to if you gave them a non-processed balanced meal. And I think you'll understand that, no, good quality ingredients and good food can definitely affect mind and body quite a bit. And she's also right with, I mean, many of the medicines we have today had origins in the plant world.
I mean, isn't aspirin derived from willow bark?
It is absolutely derived from willow bark. Yep. And actually, and Aaron, you were talking about, didn't you, you mentioned you had a cold. Didn't you say that your elderberry extract was one of your go-tos?
Yes. Okay. And I think we've talked about it on the show, because I'm pretty sure I posted the link in the show notes. But what I do is I take a teaspoon of, it's called Sambucus Black Elderberry Extract, and we get it from the vitamin shop, and it's like an 8-ounce bottle. I don't know how much it costs. And so I just take it like twice a day until I start to feel better. And I don't know how effective it is, but it helps some, because I was starting to develop an earache, and now I'm not. So it works. It's got some antiviral properties. So it's a lot cheaper than prescription medication, that's for sure.
And I was telling you, of course, about my my herbal remedy that works very well for sinus infections, which is
see how you snort Tabasco.
A couple of drops in the sinus rinse, and that is also has some scientific backing on the. Originally there was one theory on why peppers are hot was that birds actually can't taste hot pepper, and that's a good way to keep like squirrels and other rodents out of your bird feeder, is mixing cayenne pepper powder into the bird seed. The birds won't care, but the chipmunks and the squirrels sure will. So the idea being that animals that will grind up the seeds when they chew them, or have or ruminants that will destroy the seeds, will take one bite of that pepper and give it a good leaving alone. But birds that will eat it and then poop the seeds out whole will be encouraged to eat it. But there's another one that actually has even more scientific basis, is that capsaicin works as a fungicide, and actually the peppers, the hotter the pepper, the less they get moldy on the vine.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you did talk very briefly about Marco Rubio, and so I want to point out that Marco Rubio is a Miami Republican, and we all know how I feel about them. So his support of red flag laws didn't come as a surprise to me at all.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get away from that and go to the topic of freedom. So we are recording this at the end of June. So right around the corner is Independence Day, our nation's birthday, and Xander gives us his independent thoughts on Independence Day.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opal. As I record this, it is the end of June. The rainbow flags are faded. The websites have already been changed to celebrate Independence Day, or something neutral in some cases. It's an important day where the several colonies declared themselves states, united against the oppression of Britain's rule. Oppression marked by unjust laws, not recognizing the lives and needs of subjects. From the beginning, the founders understood that freedom may need incremental change. The freedom of self-autonomy, as well as the freedom to use the tools of self-defense. The freedom, by being fully recognized as an American citizen, to just live and let live. But then, as now, people kept trying to keep certain minorities from having the tools to tell others, no, stop that. And that weakens everyone. If you exclude those people from freedom, from the tools to maintain said freedom, you create holes that allow others to do the same to you. Our founders had their differences. Groups did things others abhorred. Yet these differences were set aside for key ideals with the understanding that together, both then and later, lives could be made better. There's room to disagree, but to take away freedoms of others is to take away your own. I know this was a really short one, but I really wanted to get something out in a timely manner. So have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about.
So if you are a subscriber, then this episode has dropped on Independence Day, and so this is very topical. If you are a free listener, don't worry, we still love you, but you're listening to this on the 7th, and Independence Day is already passed, so it's a little bit stale. But we still hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Do you have plans for Independence Day, Aaron?
No, I don't, because I don't like crowds, and it's hot in Florida, and there are mosquitoes. So I'm going to stay home and be a hermit and listen to all the illegal fireworks going off in our neighborhood and trying not to grouse about them. To be clear, I want to point this out. My complaint isn't that they're illegal. You know, I mean, there are a lot of laws that are garbage, and I'm all for breaking them. But we live in a state that is very prone to forest fires. And if you're not careful, a firework can start fires. We've seen enough videos of them going off and setting fire to houses and cars. And so I just don't want my house burned down because some idiot was careless with his firework down the block. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're responsible and you shoot them out over one of the lakes we have, okay, that's fine. But you never go wrong banking on the general public being idiots. So that's where I am. I just wanted to throw that out there.
That is true. And, well, I don't want to end it on a downer note, but this immediately popped into my head listening to this segment is that this weekend my daughter had her first swim meet, and she had a good time. She's actually just, since she's in the younger team, she's actually was doing exhibition swimming. It was just getting her feet wet, quite literally. But it was in the town of Concord, and my daughter was actually quite excited because, of course, they were studying the Battle of Lexington and Concord in school, and I mean, it's especially vivid here in Massachusetts because it's like right there. So we were talking about the Battle of Lexington and Concord and our thoughts on the shot heard around the world and that sort of stuff. And, of course, meanwhile, I'm driving and I had a switchblade in my pocket, but I did not have a firearm because we were going to a school and that's illegal. And even if I had a firearm, it would only have 10-round magazines because, again, we have magazine bans and assault weapons bans and all of that stuff in the place where we started a revolution because King George sent his men to Lexington and Concord to seize the guns. And we said, hell's no, and killed them.
So do you know who we don't say hell's no to and kill, Weer'd?
Oh, God, we're not going to do it to our listeners.
No, of course not.
We love them. We love them. And we thank them. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate every single one of you. And we're not We're not going to kill you, bayonet you, because you're not emissaries of King George. Even if you're an emissary of King Charles, fine. One of my neighbors is a British citizen, and I constantly make fun of him for it. But we definitely don't make fun of and give extra special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To be on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers Podcast to sign up. It's not a tip jar. I'm not begging. We're selling stuff. You can get early release of the podcast. You can get bonus content like the blooper reels, the ACP film track, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I got a blog. It's weerdworld.com. That's weerdworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me if I ever get out of this funk at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
He drinks IPAs willingly, whereas I think they taste like urine. Our tastes in beer are assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.